Welcome to Grey County Life at Home. I'm one of your hosts, Ronda Brown, with the always hungry Charlie Brown. And good morning, Miss Mary Jane.
Oh, good morning, Rhonda.
We are having a very special show today, Mary Jane, and it is all about a very revered member of our community.
Well, yes, Andrew Armitage, who has recently passed away, but he wrote this amazing book called the Georgian Bay Explorer Christmas. And this is going to be our holiday show. And we will be featuring some of the incredible stories that he wrote, and also our special guest, Ross Kentner, who also participated in the compiling and editing of the Georgian Bay Explorer Christmas. So this is an amazing opportunity, not only to honor Andrew, but also to celebrate the Christmas in our local history. And welcome, Ross. You have a great introduction. Ross, you're credited with having to assisted with this book with compiling and editing it.
Yes, I'd like to take just a second, if I could, and just tell you a little bit about where the genesis of the Georgian Bay Explorer, if you like. So if you go back, I want to say 40 years at least, Victoria and Grey Trust, which later was absorbed by National Trust and then by Scotiabank. They were looking for a promotion in Owen Sound, and Bill Hawkins, who owned CFOS at the time, and Chris Morris, who was the branch manager of Victoria and Grey, had the idea of short entertaining scripts about the region airing on CFOS and driving listeners into the branch to pick up a hard copy of these stories. So Andrew Armitage at the time, the very popular young chief librarian in Owen Sound, I don't know how he and Bill hooked up, but they did. And I'm pretty sure that Bill talked him into researching and writing these scripts. And one of the earliest, if not the first, was called The Beautiful Townships of Grey and Bruce. And Chris used to come into the studio and record them on behalf of Victoria and Grey. And I think they ran about 10 minutes at that time. And they were printed in little pamphlets, very much like the old chapbooks. And somewhere at home here, I do have a few of those originals, but I'm going to have to dig and find them. Andrew developed a huge enthusiasm for the area. He explored and researched it very thoroughly. And before long, he was being published by Mary Ann Thomas of the Ginger Press. And about this time, Mr. Hawkins was planning an application for an FM station in Owen Sound. That was Mix 106. And between them, Andrew and Bill hatched the idea of the Georgian Bay Explorer. And Andrew actually went to Ottawa with us to explain it all to the commissioners, and we were successful. So I believe that would be about 1985 or 1986. And by that time, I was the station manager, but I knew immediately this was going to be immensely popular. And so I managed to become the reader of the Explorer, the voice of the Explorer. And I didn't realize at the time just how much I would learn about the area, or what an appetite that people have for the stories of our region. So as time went on, FM it was more music, less talk, and the Explorer went back onto CFOS. But then amazingly, Bayshore developed a number of new FM stations across Southern Ontario, and Andrew actually developed the Lake Huron Explorer, the Nottawasaga Explorer, and even the Twin Lakes Explorer over in Orillia. So he really knew the whole region of Southern Ontario very well, and did that. In 2013, the Ginger Press published Murder, Mystery, and Mayhem, 26 true stories about Grey and Bruce. And he gave me a copy and inscribed in it to Ross, a collaboration of what, 35 years? Now that was back in 2013. So as I say, I think we had a 40-year association. And unfortunately, after he lost his wife, the fire went out. And I was able to, I had enough scripts that we kept the program going until 2018. And then I ran for council in Meaford, and you cannot be an elected representative, at least running for office, and also be on the air as a host. So that is where the Explorer came to an end. But I know that Andrew would be so pleased that the Owen Sound North Grey Union Library is preserving these scripts for posterity.
What an amazing introduction. And one of the things you mentioned was how much you learned about this area. And that's one of the things that I love about Grey County Life is Rhonda and I are learning so much about our community as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed reading. I got a copy of the book. I won't mention how, but I did get a copy of the book and read through the stories and thoroughly enjoyed them all. And it was a great way to learn not only about the history of our community, but also his talent for storytelling.
For sure. By way of introduction of my story, if you like, a Victorian Christmas Eve. The office of the Owen Sound Advertiser has actually changed very little. It's in the middle of the south block of 9th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. And in the most recent past, the bean cellar was in the basement. But I used to sit in my office there at CFOS, look across the road, and I often thought about editor James Little. He lived by advertising as I have. He editorialized as I have. Times were different, but I wondered just how different they were. And that's why this story really grabbed me, because I felt that Christmas 1896 was really very much like our Christmas right now, a drab, dreary, no snow Christmas so far. So Andrew wrote many Christmas stories, which I enjoyed putting together in this little booklet, but this is the one that kind of speaks to me the most. So if I may.
Oh, Ross, yes? You know what? We'll hold off there because we're going to cut for a commercial right now, but we will be back with more of our special show in honor of Andrew Armitage.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
We can be hurt. We can be bruised. We can be broken. Slowed down, confused, and even numbed. But we can't be defeated. We're built on a foundation that's strong, our mission unwavering, and together we'll beat as one.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
Are you the type who would keep going or stop? It's not easy to stop when you have an addiction. Legalizing cannabis won't stop addiction. It trivializes its consumption. Let's be vigilant. If you need help, visit portage.ca.
Welcome back to Grey County Life at Home. Welcome to our special, very special holiday show where we are honoring a local fellow who has done a whole lot for our community, most definitely. And we've got the wonderful Ross Kentner here, and he has picked out his story that he would like to read that was from the Georgian Bay Explorer's Christmas. It's a lovely book of a compilation of the stories that Andrew put together or wrote, and that Ross helped put together. And we have some special guests today, but our first is Ross with his reading.
Thank you very much. There was almost no snow the first few weeks of December 1896. Townspeople passing on the sidewalks of Owen Sound made small talk of grand white Christmases they remembered when they and the town were younger. Owen Sound advertiser editor James H. Little noticed the malaise and called on his friends and readers to ignore the drabness of the weather and have an old-time Merry Christmas this year, a real old-fashioned happy one. The editor went on to rail against what he felt to be the growing commercialization of Christmas and the bad habit of giving expensive presents. The true spirit of Christmas in 1896 is often wholly lacking, he wrote. There's often a petty rivalry as to who will give the greatest number of expensive gifts. There's often an unworthy jealousy. Money is spent which is ill-afforded, causing bitterness and bad feeling. There ought to be less giving of presents at Christmas, the good editor concluded. But the town's merchants announced their holiday promotions anyway. R.P. Butchard had specials on jardiniers, onyx tables, banquet lights, and a completely new stock of electroplated ware. Eaton Brothers Brewing and Malting Company had prepared an aged stock of Indian Pale Ale, Golden Ale, and Triple X Stout. Many shoppers headed to Grafton's, where Major and Mrs. NGW Winner were on hand to promote men's and boys' suits and special camel hair overcoats. The Winners from Iowa were the smallest married couple known and the world's greatest midgets. Gala events took place all over town. An oyster supper was thrown by town officials for the officers of the CPR steamers. The Young Men's Christian Association celebrated Christmas with a fun-filled debate, while the Ladies' Aid Society of Division Street Presbyterian Church held a successful Christmas bazaar. As Christmas drew near, Editor Little offered a series of seasonal do's and don'ts. Don't rush in and out of the stores as if St. Nicholas was a foul fiend and after you. Don't shop with a wrinkled forehead and a careworn face as if the giving of gifts was an intolerable bore. Don't fuss, don't hurry, don't worry, don't fret. Christmas has come and gone many times and will come and go again. By Christmas Eve, all the events of the season of 1896 had been held. All the shopping was done, and one by one, downtown stores shuttered their windows, turned off the lights, and closed all the doors. Only the post office and the customs wicket stayed open for a few final hours. The faint sounds of carols were heard down the streets as a gentle snow started to sift over the town. Families gathered for the evening, finishing the last small tasks before Christmas morning. There was a feeling of peace and hope that season, so close to the end of the century. And by the warm glow of the hearth, the Christmas Eve newspaper was read. Editor James Little offered a final season's greeting. May the demon of adversity never knock at your door, but may the goddess of prosperity and the angel of happiness be ever your companion. Again, Merry Christmas to all.
That was beautiful.
And it's such a timely message, as a matter of fact, in the situation that we're in right now. How much forethought did he have at the time?
I don't think in 100 years things have changed very much, have they?
Well, I think it's a particularly good message for us right now to de-stress and to enjoy the season, and maybe we'll get a little snow.
Fingers crossed on that one, Mary Jane. That would be lovely. That was really nice, Ross. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a beautiful story. And it is, we think about how we stress out about what we're going to give and the competition of what the best gift is. And my goodness, that is not the point at all. And we still struggle with that.
Andrew always put a few tongue twisters in his scripts. So.
Well, our next reader happens to be the current CEO of our beautiful library here in Owen Sound, one of my favorite places. It is Tim Nichols Harrison. Welcome, Tim. How are you this morning?
I'm well, Rhonda. I'm well. Thank you very much for having me on today. I'm very pleased to be here today.
Well, it's a wonderful thing to be able to celebrate local people who have done so much for our community and raised awareness about our history and the history of our Christmases, especially today for this special holiday show.
It's wonderful. Andrew Armitage was a real leader in this community, and he, beyond anchoring the library itself and doing so many things, I just finished at a city council meeting where we're renewing a new union library agreement for another 10 years. And that whole concept of providing libraries for the wider region was Andrew doing that work with all of the councillors. But the work isn't just in that he brought us a modern library, but he also encouraged everyone in this region to be readers and writers. And he did that through the stories that Ross told, through the columns in the Sun-Times, and to the support that he gave to so many writers in our community who came and brought him stuff, and he would review it and make suggestions. So to have an opportunity today to celebrate some of that and to share some of that research that he's done and hopefully do justice, and I'm not going to do it as well as Ross obviously has spent years doing, but to have an opportunity to come in and remember Andrew in this way, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it is. It's a fantastic opportunity. And you're right, to do this on the heels of Ross Kentner is a little intimidating, but I am sure that the story that you picked out today is lovely and that you will do a fabulous job.
Yeah, and the story I picked today was The Magic of Charles Dickens, and it actually refers to getting the books from the library. And I thought, hey, that's a great plug. So people can get them here, and they can also get the electronic versions. Don't forget, we have a virtual library 24/7 with magazines, books, everything there. But when I start the story, I just want to give a little caution, and I'm going to look and try and make sure people realize this was written in 1992. It was Ross first read it on December 20th, 1992. And part of it talks about going to Meaford for Dickens days and experiencing some of the activities that are happening in Meaford. So when you listen today, that's not happening in Meaford this weekend, okay? There's other great things happening in Meaford. Go to Meaford, drop in, visit their new library. It's amazing. Shop Grey Bruce, but don't go to Meaford this weekend expecting the Dickens weekend, okay?
Very good, yeah.
So, if you're ready, I'll start.
Okay.
The Magic of Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was the single most important figure in Victorian literature. From the publication of his first book, Sketches by Boz, published in 1836, to his 15th and last novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which was left unfinished at Dickens' death in 1870. The works and words of this amazing man captured the hearts of readers around the world. And no single author has come close to matching Charles Dickens when Christmas stories are read or told. His immortal A Christmas Carol, which is subtitled A Ghost Story of Christmas, is known to everyone who enjoys the true magic of the season. This coming Wednesday, the town of Meaford is going to go Dickens crazy for an entire day. A wonderful children's entertainment, The Magic of Charles Dickens, starring Michael Ross, will be performed live at the Meaford Opera House at 2 p.m. The play will be for children from age 4 to 100, and tickets are $4. They're available at Stuff to Read in Meaford, the Crow's Nest in Collingwood, and at the Rocking Horse or the Ginger Press in Owen Sound. Charles Dickens' Day doesn't end with the final curtain at the Opera House. There will be Surrey rides from 3 to 5, and beginning at 3, the Squire's Tea Party at the Meaford Town Hall. The tea party looks fun with hot cider, yummies galore, music, face painting, and holiday crackers. Crackers, by the way, are those mini explosive decorations that are fun to pull. After the bang, open them up, read your fortune, and win a gift. The modern Christmas cracker began life back in the early 1840s when a London confectioner named Tom Smith was sitting in front of his fire. A piece of burning wood let off a loud crack reminiscent of the noise produced by Cossack horsemen's whips. Smith married the cracking sound to his wrapped bonbons, creating the Christmas cracker. But back to Charles Dickens. The man who will be honored in Meaford Wednesday is the stuff of fairy tales. When he was young, his father was thrown into debtor's prison, and Dickens himself ending up in a blacking factory. From that boyhood misery, he went on to achieve fame and fortune and write some of the best Christmas stories of all time. We all know Scrooge and Tiny Tim, but what about Toby Veck, the poor ticket porter of the Chimes? Written in 1844, it was subtitled A Goblin Story of Some Bells That Rang an Old Year Out and a New Year In. Or John Peerybingle of The Cricket on the Hearth. This tale was even more popular in its day than A Christmas Carol. And then there was The Haunted Man and the Ghost Bargain, a fancy for Christmas time. If you haven't read Dickens' other Christmas stories, take time out after your visit to Meaford this weekend. Visit your public library and borrow a copy of his Christmas collection. Pull up an armchair, gather the family around. Dickens is pure holiday magic.
Today I'm going to read Owen Sound's First Christmas, a story written by my good friend and mentor, Andrew Armitage. At this time of year, I always make it a point to watch It's a Wonderful Life, because the universal message in that movie really speaks to me. None of us ever knows what influence we have on the lives of other people. And I think if you had asked Andrew while he was alive what influence he had, he might have looked at you for a minute and scratched his head and then gotten his nose back into whatever book he happened to be reading at the moment. But Andrew Armitage had an amazing influence on a multitude of people, generations of Owen Sounders who went to the public library looking for help on school projects, for books to read, information on jobs they were hoping to get. You name it, Andrew had it all at his fingertips, and he helped everybody willingly. When I began my own career, Andrew was instrumental in helping me out with information and research materials. Later, he became a reader for each of the first drafts of my books, and of course, then much later, he became a reviewer of my books in his job with the Owen Sound Sun-Times. I owe him a huge debt of gratitude, and I'll really miss his advice and wisdom as I move forward with my writing career. So, without any further ado, Owen Sound's First Christmas. Last autumn, when we were putting our garden down for the winter, we tilled up the stems and bowls of a number of clay pipes. Someone among the family who originally settled these acres was a heavy tobacco smoker. The white clay fragments reminded me of Owen Sound's first resident, Tom Rutherford, and the Christmas story of his empty clay pipe. In 1840, Charles Rankin, the Queen's surveyor, John Telfer, the land agent, and two assistants, Tom Rutherford and Joseph Black, were the only non-native residents at the edge of a tamarack swamp on Owen Sound Bay. The party was in the Sydenham Valley mapping out a new community that one day would become Owen Sound. With the first snows of autumn, it was time for the survey party to return to civilization. But they had brought a large amount of equipment with them that was too valuable to be left unguarded. So it fell to Tom Rutherford to winter over until the first of the new settlers arrived the following May. An excellent axeman, Tom was assigned the task of clearing a town site over the long winter months. By November, he'd built a stout log cabin. Stand today at the corner of 8th Street and 2nd Avenue East. In 1840, where running shoes now sit in a store window, was a chinked cedar cabin with a mud-mortared chimney. It was the scenic city's first building. There was much to get done that December, so Rutherford didn't think about his loneliness until he heard the cry of wild geese overhead. It was time to go, and Tom was staying. Rutherford carved a calendar on the log wall. On a whim, he put up a few Christmas decorations, a sprig of cedar, a few scarlet rose hips, a bit of bright cloth left by a trader. With the candles lit, the cabin seemed homey. The surveyor's assistant was a civilized man and determined to celebrate Christmas. The day's feast would include wild goose, dried peaches and apricots, wild rice, and a pudding made from suet, raisins, and dark sugar. Tom Rutherford was satisfied that first Christmas night on the banks of the Sydenham, but not happy. If only he had some tobacco to smoke in his empty clay pipe. Tom liked to smoke after dinner, and he had long since exhausted his small supply. There wasn't much he could do but enjoy his frontier Christmas dinner and be early to bed. Now used to the silence of his forested shore, Tom's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of human company coming through the woods to the west. Tom opened the door to a half-dozen members of the Nawash Band of Ojibwe returning from a hunt to their permanent camp in the valley. Silently they followed him into the cabin. Sitting comfortably around the cabin walls, one pulled a twist of trade tobacco from a leather pouch. Offering it to Tom, he took out his own pipe and pulled a coal from the fire. In his old age, Tom Rutherford couldn't recollect what they talked about that Christmas night in 1840. It was mostly hand signs and a few common words, but the talk was friendly, and Tom was grateful for the Christmas gift of tobacco. What a wonderful story about Owen Sound's earliest days. I'm going to end with a few words from Andrew, taken from his retirement speech a number of years ago, speaking about the sheer joy of being Owen Sound's public librarian. Happy holidays, everyone.
I emptied my office today, and I haven't really said my goodbyes to my friends, but it's been a gas, guys. It's been the funnest time one could have ever had in any career, professional, whatever you do in life, to have spent 3 decades in a little port town on Lake Huron, on Georgian Bay, that I found by total accident that so resembled where I came from, which is more hills and mountains than it is waters and valleys. But it's the same spirit of people living the way people want to. Yeah, somebody said I left my country because I needed to come somewhere else and believe something else. And I began to believe in Canada long time ago and become the ultimate Catholic turned Canadian. I mean, it's been quite an experience. I was just reading today before I came here, nervous as hell, a gorgeous novel by Helen Humphreys called After Image, in which I hit the quote, "It's just like that. Reading is as necessary as breathing."
Happy holidays from Georgian College.
Hi, I'm Carol Merton, host of HealthLink, wishing you and all of your loved ones a wonderful holiday season. Take care, stay safe.
Christmas 2021 is shaping up to be the best that we've had in a couple of years now. Hockey's back on Rogers TV. I'm Rob Leonard, play-by-play announcer for Meaford Knights Hockey on Rogers TV. On behalf of my broadcast partner, Spencer Byers, and all of the crew, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a fantastic Happy New Year in 2022. Thanks, and everyone be safe and have a great holiday.
Declan Flanagan and Baron Herzog of the Meaford Knights. We just want to wish you all a very safe and happy holiday. See you guys in the new year.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Welcome back to Great County Life at Home. And we are continuing with our very special holiday season show featuring Andrew Armitage, acknowledging him and recognizing the great contributions that he has made to our community. And we have also gathered a small community of people who share the common denominator with Andrew, and that is the love of books and stories and local history, and of course, all connected through the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library. And we are certainly highlighting the library and all of the special readers that we have today that are connected, but it is a tribute to Andrew and his talents as well as his community contribution. And it is my pleasure to introduce our first reader in this section of the show. And that is my friend Judy Armstrong. Welcome, Judy. I'm so glad to have this opportunity to see you. And Judy's contribution to the Georgian Bay Explorer Christmas stories. Judy was the assistant director at the time at the library when Andrew was putting this together, and made a huge contribution to the books through the local history and photographs and illustrations that I'm sure you were scurrying around trying to put together for this. So you are acknowledged in the book as a great contributor to this project. And of course, when Andrew retired, Judy became the CEO and chief librarian of the library. And you were there for many years, and you were the first CEO that I worked under. So welcome, Judy. And you're going to be reading The Hollyberry Brunch.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane. I'm just delighted to be a part of that. Mary Jane, thank you for the introduction. I'm Judy Beth Armstrong, a librarian who had the great privilege to work with Andrew Armitage for more than 20 years at our beloved Owen Sound Public Library. I first met Andrew when he came as guest lecturer to U of T's Faculty of Library Science when I was a student there in 1974. Then he hired me in 1977 as community services librarian, and thanks to Andrew, I had the best job during a career of more than 30 years as a professional librarian at the library that grew to have the longest name, the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library. Andrew was my boss, my mentor, my longtime friend of more than 40 years, and favorite librarian and book reviewer. A few weeks ago, Andrew died at his farmhouse home, taken quickly by a heart attack while in the midst of unpacking a new shipment of books to read and review. The best possible death for a librarian. Rest in peace, dear Andrew, now reunited with Lorraine Brown, the love of your life, and the many cats who once shared your home. I'm delighted to be a part of this special show featuring stories from Andrew Armitage's The Georgian Bay Explorer Christmas. I'll read A Hollyberry Brunch from that collection. Please be reminded that this story was written many years ago and promotes an event long past. A Hollyberry Brunch. The Georgian Bay Explorer, who is really a librarian by day, let me interrupt the story here for a moment. When Andrew writes that he is really a librarian by day, there's some background you should know. Andrew was hired in 1971 and went on to transform the Owen Sound Public Library from a very traditional, no-nonsense atmosphere to a true community service-focused library. He took the shh out of the library. He knowledgeably amassed a bibliographic collection second to none. He was fascinated by the rich history of Gray and Bruce and created the library's local history collection. He envisioned and built the largest union public library in the province, thereby enabling all residents of the now-named municipalities of Chatsworth, Meaford, and Georgian Bluffs, in addition to Owen Sound, to become card-carrying members of the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library. Andrew Armitage's legacy as a dedicated, innovative, and passionate librarian lives on. Now, back to our story. The Georgian Bay Explorer, who is really a librarian by day, is going to slip next door from the Owen Sound Public Library to pay a visit to our neighbor, the Thompson Art Gallery. The gallery is hosting a Hollyberry Brunch. Tickets are $7 at the door, and there will be music by Joachim Ostertag and Colleen Purdon. And lots of holly, we hope. Holly, with its white flowers and red berries, is a lasting symbol of the Christmas holidays. We sing about it, decorate our homes with it, and prick our fingers on its sharp, thorny leaves. Holly's genesis ilex, and long ago it became a pagan symbol of immortality. Like many of our Christmas customs, the hanging of holly is an ancient custom. Holly made the home safe from evil. The sharp prickles of its green leaves were believed by those inclined to worry about such things to wound and repel witches and demons and just plain bad spirits. Holly and ivy usually went together. In solstice ceremonies centuries ago, holly symbolized the male, while females were represented by ivy. Holly was thought to be especially lucky for men, and to capture a husband, many a young lass cut and scratched the name of a loved one on a holly leaf and attached it to the pillow upon which she slept on Christmas night. Early Roman Christians liberated holly from the days of the pagan Saturnalia. Christian legend held that the true cross was made of holly wood. Another legend says that holly was used to make the crown of thorns, and the berries, which were originally yellow, became red from the blood of Christ. In Denmark, holly is known as Christ thorn. Holly in our more Christian era became the stuff of superstition. In Wales, taking holly into a friend's house was sure to cause death. In Germany, it is unlucky to step on holly berries. Holly picked on Christmas protects against witches and wolves. Plentiful holly berries are a sign of a severe winter. Holly branches must never be burned when green. To do so is extremely unlucky. One rather unpleasant use of holly was a well-known country remedy. In case of a chill, one was directed to thrash the body with holly bushes to let the cold blood out. One of our favorite superstitions demands that a single holly sprig be kept after Christmas is over and done. The green and red branch is sure to protect the home from lightning during the coming year. So with holly in mind, we're going to a hollyberry brunch held long ago at the Thompson Art Gallery. See you there, says Andrew. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this tribute to Andrew Armitage. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's really interesting how we've embraced the holly and the berry as a symbol of Christmas and had no idea of its history or origin. And yet we take it, we welcome it into our home and we celebrate it. And had no idea that it had such a long-standing history.
Fascinating story.
It is, and how we've incorporated so many of these traditions and turned them into celebrations.
Wow.
Well, thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Richard Ives-Sitoski, who is the Owen Sound Poet Laureate. And he is an author and has written a couple of books on poetry, but he is also well known because of his spoken word presentations. And Richard is going to read a story called Hanukkah for us. Welcome, Richard.
Oh, you're on mute, sir.
There we go. Thanks, Mary Jane and Rhonda, for this. I've always been a big fan of Andrew Armitage's. He has been a champion of my own work for years. He's written reviews of my books in the Sun Times, and he even purchased one of my paintings, which was for sale. It was one of the illustrations from my first book, Brownfields, which was a historical overview of Owen Sound in poetry. And he liked the painting of the burning grain elevators. So I was very grateful for that. And of course, as sponsor of the Owen Sound Poet Laureate Program, he makes possible what I believe to be the only privately funded laureateship in the entire country. So that gives me a measure of independence that a lot of my fellow poets laureate don't have. So I think that's actually wonderful, and I'm very, very thankful to that. So, yes, we're going to discuss Hanukkah today. And after my reading of Andrew's story, I've got a few notes on the Owen Sound Synagogue, Beth Ezekiel. So, Hanukkah. The Georgian Bay Explorer was invited to a festival of lights last week. No, not the Sydenham Riverside Festival of Northern Lights in Owen Sound, but the ancient Jewish festival of Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication. It was an experience well worth reporting. Hanukkah, as we learned as we sat with members of Owen Sound's Jewish community, began in the year 165 BC when Judah the Maccabee overthrew a massed Syrian force. After 3 years of battle, the Jewish partisans succeeded in prevailing against the forces of Antiochus. The Syrian garrison was driven out of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem in what has been called the first recorded war for religious freedom. For the next 2 centuries, until the Romans destroyed the temple and Jewish national independence in 70 AD, Jerusalem and the Jewish culture were free to grow and prosper. To celebrate the miracle of the Maccabee revolt, an annual feast of dedication began. Celebrated for 8 days, starting with the 25th day of the lunar month of Kislev, the holiday is held in Jewish homes throughout Georgian Bay. With the sun setting on one of the shortest days of the year, we were reminded that Hanukkah is not only a rededication of the temple, but a rekindling of the winter sun. We joined our hosts for the lighting of candles, a ceremony that takes place at sunset for 8 consecutive days. The menorah, a 9-branch candelabrum, holds 9 candles. 1 is lit the first day of Hanukkah, 2 on the second, until on the 8th day, 8 candles are lit with the 9th, known as the Shamash. Ancient songs are sung and blessings given. The menorah, a symbol of religious freedom, is often placed in the window for passersby to see. Then came a feast. The centerpiece was a traditional European dish of potato pancakes called latkes, accompanied matzo balls and matzo bread, and strong red wine. Downstairs in the recreation room, a 3-piece klezmer band played the wonderful music of the streets of Europe as guests danced and sang. Hanukkah is a home celebration for family and friends. The warmth of the hearth and the beauty of ancient Jewish traditions reminds us of how rich our culture is here in Huronia. The Georgian Bay Explorer had a wonderful time. And so now a few notes about Beth Ezekiel. You must have driven by this building on the corner of 11th Street and 3rd Avenue, perhaps without knowing that it is the last remaining small town synagogue in Canada. From the turn of the 20th century until the beginning of the Second World War, Jews escaping pogroms in Eastern Europe found homes throughout the country and established synagogues in rural areas. But the enactment of the closed-door policy limiting Jewish immigration, Jewish life moved to the larger urban centers, and many of the small town congregations dispersed. That Beth Ezekiel has remained a vital part of Owen Sound's spiritual and cultural fabric for over a century is a testament to the strong bonds forged and maintained amongst its members. Among the building's best-known features are the gorgeous stained glass windows designed by Lee Greaves in honor of prominent local families. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to you, Mary Jane and Rhonda. Thanks for all this. And yeah, I appreciate this very much.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that Tim and Ross and Judy and you, Richard, have taken the time to really honor Andrew and his legacy within our community. Those were very beautiful tributes to his memory. And for folks who may not be as familiar with Andrew, although I'm not sure who they would be, but it is a great opportunity for them to learn about not only Andrew as a person, a librarian, a historian, a storyteller, a story writer, but also to know his contribution within our community and the people who have celebrated his life and his journey. And that one of the things when I was reading the book was the eclectic pieces of information and history that he included, like the story about the holly berry, who knew? And of course, he included our Jewish citizens as well, and how that has continued to be a very important factor in our community as well. So this has been really amazing, but we still have one more story reader. The next story reader is Ronda Brown, who is my co-host for Great County Life. And she has the light bulb moments that brings so much fun to our programming. And the Honoring Andrew Armitage show was one of her light bulb moments. And this has been an incredible opportunity. So Rhonda, your story.
Well, thank you, Mary Jane. You give way too much credit because the light bulb only goes on every once in a blue moon, just so you know. But I'm very happy to be to read one of the stories. My story that I've picked, I'm going to read it after these messages. It makes me think of my family. My great-grandmother, Isabel Monahan, or Isabel McMillan, who married William Monahan. They got married in 1914 here in Owen Sound. So when I read my story, I imagine that it is exactly what her life was back then. After these messages, I'll come back and read my story from the Georgian Bay Explorer's Christmas book. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm David Shearman, host of Politically Speaking on Rogers TV. Politically Speaking is a show where you get to sit and watch me talk to our elected officials for an hour every single week. Politically Speaking on Rogers TV.
Blood in the urine is the most common symptom of bladder cancer. Don't ignore this warning sign, not even once.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
Hi, I'm Cal Ewens, defenseman with Owen Sound Attack. Go behind the scenes with your favorite team on Attack Craft every Tuesday on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Great County Life at Home. I'm going to read my story from the book compiled with Ross and of Andrew Armitage's works. And my story that I picked out is called A Georgian Bay Christmas, 1910. The year is 1910, and silent snow falls over the tiny community of Parkhead. It is Christmas Day, 85 years long gone, but not forgotten. At least not in the memory of a listener who called the Georgian Bay Explorer recently to tell us of a wonderful Christmas she knew as a child in an old farmhouse on the Bruce Peninsula. Christmas Day 1910 began with a crisp morning and falling snow, she remembered. 2 very special geese, selected with care and fattened by the children, were ready for the oven of the wood-burning cook stove. The farmhouse, brightly decorated with treasures brought long ago from the Isle of Skye, hung from a fine white pine. Dried oranges peppered with cloves scented the room, while at the very top of the tree there was a special angel bought at the very first Royal Winter Fair. The baking was nearly finished. Tea rings, shortbread, Christmas puddings, and Scotch cookies lay on platters next to the best Christmas cake in Amabel Township. The Christmas cake had to be large enough to stand up to visits from neighbors who followed the custom of eating at least one piece of the holiday treat in 12 different households, one for each day of Christmas. Good luck in the year ahead greeted those successful in their quest. According to our caller, there would actually be 2 huge feasts on that 1910 Christmas Day. The first one would be at noon for friends and family close by. The second would come later in the day when far-off relatives from Owen Sound and Chesley finally made their frost-bitten way up the lane. At each meal, there would be a rich brown goose and all the trimmings, carrot pudding, immense bowls of turnips and potatoes, plum pudding, pickles, relishes, and homemade bread still sending out clouds of aromatic steam. At some time during the day, an uncle, rotund in shape, would excuse himself to visit the barn. It wasn't even his barn, our caller explained. Half an hour later, through the back door came Santa Claus with a huge bag of gifts and toys inside. After the excitement was over and Santa had taken his leave, the portly uncle would return from the barn, voicing his disappointment at having missed the fun. But everyone noticed the bits of white cotton in his hair, we were told. The best day of the year, she called it, ended with skating on a frozen farm pond by torchlight as the horses and cutters made their way down the lane, returning home with sleeping passengers buried deep beneath fur robes. We ended our conversation talking about the end of the Christmas season, when all of the wonders of the day were stored away in boxes, waiting 12 long months to be opened again. But the memories, she told us, last the whole years through, and longer. At 92, our caller remembered a Christmas back in 1910. She remembered it with fondness and joy. We hope that you too will remember this wonderful day 8 decades from now. A very Merry Christmas from the Georgian Bay Explorer, and thank you for letting us be a part of your celebration today. That is my story. Woo, gotta turn off my flashlight. I just absolutely adored that story. And as I said before, it just made me think of what my great-grandparents and what their Christmas was like absolutely when they were here. So I just really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Well, that's wonderful. And we're going to finish off our holiday season show with another reading by Ross Kentner.
Thank you very much. And that 1910 Christmas really is one of the best scripts Andrew ever wrote, for sure. So this is one that ran on Christmas Day, actually. Did Father Christmas come down your chimney last night? Since he was a child, the explorer has always had a vivid image of Santa Claus in his immaculate red and white suit with that huge snowy beard emerging onto the hearth on Christmas Eve, all covered with soot. But we didn't have a fireplace in my childhood home, so we had to use our imagination on exactly how old St. Nick got into our house. Our North Sydenham farmhouse is rich with chimneys, all very tall, very narrow, and usually very dirty. So just how did those presents get under our tree? Does Santa have a thin, washable assistant? Being the explorer, we went looking for the answer to this mystery to discover its roots are deep in history. Anthropologists, with their authoritative ways, link chimney descent with primitive fire worship. Fires were kept raging during the solstice so that evil spirits couldn't come down the chimney. In a later age, it was accustomed to shut the fire down on New Year's Day, climb up on the roof, and clean the chimney. It was widely believed, particularly in Ireland, Cornwall, and Wales, that good luck would enter the house and stay there for the rest of the year. As the years passed, the good luck coming down the chimney was Father Christmas. But it wasn't until 1822 that our modern image of Santa descending the chimney, a large bag of toys over his shoulder, was born when the American scholar Clement Moore wrote a poem for his 6 young children. A visit from St. Nicholas describes St. Nick arriving in a sleigh drawn by reindeer that land on the roof of his house. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of little hooves. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. Desmond Morris, the noted anthropologist, points out that the author Clement Moore was also an anthropologist and conversant with Christmas myths and legends. With its reference to reindeer, this famous poem finds a home in Finland, where Lapps lived in small igloo-shaped tents with a hole in the roof for the smoke to escape. Since Santa jumped into the chimney with a single bound, he was probably entering a skin-covered Lapland hut. But anthropology is pretty dry stuff on this Christmas day. We'd prefer to keep thinking that somehow plump old Santa really does come down our chimney each Christmas and never sends us a cleaning bill.
Oh, thank you, Ross. I think we're coming to the end of our holiday show, and what a great way to leave it off with all the tributes from Ross Kentner, Tim Nichols Harrison, Richard Thomas, Judy Armstrong, Richard Ives-Sitoski, and Ronda Brown. What a great holiday celebration. So with that, I guess it's wishing you all a Merry Christmas and to all a good night or a good day or a good morning, wherever you're tuning in.
Yes, we hope that everyone has a warm, safe, happy holiday season. We will see you in the new year. My gosh, 2022, which doesn't even sound real, sometimes when you say it out loud. But we thank you so much, Ross, for joining us today and helping us to honor a very wonderful local celebrity, really, I think.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Yo. Yep. Okay, I'll be there.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These